So, today we are going to talk about introduction and conclusion paragraphs, and you will use this information to help write your own introduction and conclusion paragraph on Monday when you get back to school for our PRQ essays. So, let's take a closer look at introductions. There are three things that you need to include in a proper introduction, and remember, each of these three things is one sentence. You need an attention grabber, background information or a bridge sentence, a thesis, and a preview statement, which again is one sentence. Okay, so you are going to help your paper grow with these key things to include in your great introduction. Do you see what I did there? So here are some examples of attention grabbers that you can use to help grab your reader and make them keep reading your essay. You can use a relevant news story, an anecdote to tell a story, a startling fact, a quote, an analogy, metaphor, or comparison, or you can use a cliche. All of these things are great examples of attention grabbers that you can use in your essay for your PRQ. So here is a proficient example of an introduction paragraph. Michael Jackson once sang, "Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better world for you and for me. The world could be a better place if there was no war. War causes a loss of life, destruction of cities, and emotional heartache, and it should be avoided at all costs." That noise that you just heard is my dog walking from one end of the kitchen to the other, so I apologize for that extra noise. But if you look, the purple sentences are the attention grabbers. The teal in the middle, that's that background information, and the blue at the bottom is the thesis and the preview. So let's take a look at those a little more closely. So you've got the attention grabber that Susie uses, and it's a quote from a famous song by Michael Jackson. It's catchy and it's relevant to the topic that we're going to talk about, even if it is a bit cheesy. So next we've got that background sentence, and Susie introduces her overall topic, and she built a bridge from her attention grabber to her thesis statement below. So you make sure that you include that bridge, that link from your background or from your, attention grabber to your thesis. And finally, your thesis statement. I know what Susie will be writing about in her paper, and I know what stance she's going to take on it. And she did a great job of previewing her three main ideas in this thesis statement. So let's review for introduction paragraphs. Remember that you need an attention grabber sentence, you need a background information or a bridge sentence, and you need a thesis statement with your preview. So now let's look at conclusions. They are last in your essay, but they are definitely not the least. So there are three parts to the conclusions paragraphs as well. You're going to restate the thesis, you're going to review the topic sentences, and you're going to tie your final idea to the attention grabber. So when you're restating your thesis, you need to make sure that you're rewording it in an interesting way and that you're not simply cutting and pasting. So for example, the thesis statement of one paper about dream jobs could be, my dream jobs are to be a teacher, a mother, or a marathon runner. Now, in the conclusion paragraph, this writer could restate the thesis like this. Overall, teaching students, mothering children, and running marathons are the jobs I aspire to have someday. So you need to make sure to reword the thesis in an interesting way and don't simply cut and paste it. Next, you need to review your topics. Tell us again what you wrote about in your body paragraphs. Remember that the order that you list them in is important, and they need to match your preview of your topics the way you introduced them in your body paragraphs, and then finally it needs to match this review. And then you've got your closing line, which needs to refer back to your attention getter. End your essay with impact, and using this type of closing line will make your conclusion in your essay more than simply a repetition of the introduction. So an example on the bottom of rewording it or tying it back, for your attention grabber, it could be, I jumped into a machine and whoosh, all of a sudden it's 30 years later. So from that attention grabber, then this person probably went on to write an essay about time machines. And then the closing line could go something like this. Jump, press, whoosh. Take a step back into the future or a step back into the past. They tied it back up to their attention grabber without just copy and pasting. So here's an example of a proficient concluding paragraph. Our world is far from being a utopia. There is so much pain, sadness, and loss, and much of it comes from the horrors of war. If war were eliminated from our world, there would be less death, destruction, and mental anguish. It is time that we begin to heal the world and make it a better place by ending the senseless wars across the globe. Now, this is a concluding paragraph that matches our introduction, so you should see some familiar things here. The blue at the top is restating the thesis statement, but again, it's restating it in an interesting way. It's not just copy and pasting. The green is the review of the 3 things that this person talked about in their body paragraphs. So there would be less death, destruction, and mental anguish. And finally, they tied their final idea back to that attention grabber of the Michael Jackson song, Heal the World. So this is, again, an example of a proficient concluding paragraph. So to review quickly, you need to remember to restate your thesis. You want to review your topic sentences. And you want to tie your final idea back to the attention grabber. So that's the end of the lesson, and in order to make sure that we know you've watched the lesson and that you've got this learning so that you can implement it on Monday and put it into your own PRQ essays, we need you to write down a magic word and hand it to your teacher when you walk into school on Monday. The magic word is pumpernickel. It's one of my favorite types of bread. And it's a silly word, so I thought maybe you would be able to get a giggle out of it if you thought so. So it's pumpernickel. Make sure you write that down and hand that to your teacher on Monday. Have a great rest of your weekend.